to you from Long Beach, California, this is GovLove, a podcast about local government, brought to you by Engaging Local Government Leaders. I'm Meredith Reynolds, Deputy City Manager of Long Beach and GovLove co-host. We have a great episode for you today. We are talking with Grace Hanne, Innovation Principal Analyst from Johnson County. But first, the best way to support GovLove is to become an ELGL member. ELGL is a professional association engaging the brightest minds in local government. Check us out and learn more about membership at elgl.org. Now let me introduce today's guest. Grace Hanne has served as the Innovation Principal Analyst for Johnson County Government since 2019, leading her team in collaboration with various departments, agencies, and offices to develop solutions that enhance county services for the community. Utilizing data, creativity, diversity, and a willingness to take risks, the team has successfully established their mission and vision, positioning the organization as a high-performance entity. Prior to joining Johnson County, Grace worked in the private sector in the healthcare industry. She has a bachelor's degree from the University of Kansas and her MBA from the University of Missouri, and holds several certifications, including a Lean Six Sigma Green Belt, a PMP certification, and is a certified public manager. Welcome to GovLove, Grace. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Very excited to chat with you today. But before we get into the meat of our conversation, let's do a lightning round. This is a lot of fun, kind of some quick answer questions here. So Grace, what was the first music album that you owned?
That's a great question. I recall it's Phantom of the Opera soundtrack since I was a fanatic for Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Love it. Love it. Are you a theater kid?
Yes, I had a lot of friends that was in theater, so I think I was coincidentally pulled into a lot of the theater tracks, their sessions. So I really developed a love for opera singing.
Awesome. All right. What's one notable book that you have read that you recommend to others working in local government?
One of my favorite book, and its title is Endurance: Shackleton's Incredible Voyage. It's written by Alfred Lansing, and you cannot put this book down once you start it, honestly.
Excellent. What is one fun fact about you, Grace?
I am fluent in Mandarin as a language on the side, so that's what I consider as fun, believe it or not.
Hey, anything nerdy in local government counts, right? That totally tracks. All right. And then your last lightning round question. What is your work superpower?
Ooh, I absolutely love to meet new people and learn about what they're passionate about, whether it's their hobbies or what they do on the side as businesses. So I would say that would be it.
Excellent. Well, you heard it here first, folks. You get to know Grace. She's a lot of fun. All right. Let's go to the kind of way back here, Grace, and let's talk a little bit about how you got your start. So what is your public service origin story, and how did you find your way into local government?
I'll be honest with you, I would say pure curiosity. I was burned out from working in the private sector nearly, almost 20 years, and I simply wanted a change.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, this new role popped up. And I just, again, very curious as to what innovation in government was all about.
Very cool. And then when you had that curiosity, what are some of those first positions that you had, and how did those experiences lead you to your work today?
So I would say the curiosity with the growth mindset is still front and center for me when it comes to any of things that we do, whether it's upstream scoping for a new project or downstream from an execution on a project perspective.
Excellent. So in this space, as you're kind of doing this work, it sounds to me like you lead a lot of teams. Tell me a little bit about your team.
So innovation team only consists of 3 headcount, believe it or not. But what we like to do is we empower and get creative with our nearly 30 departments, office, and agencies and partner with them to run our projects, because we believe wholeheartedly that it is through those partnerships that you have the buy-in upstream and you're going to see more success downstream when it comes to execution.
And how hard was that to really impart with some folks? I can imagine that you talk a good game and you say, "Hey, this is going to really work out for you." Not everyone's a true believer, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, you hit the nail in the bullseye. But what I'll be honest with you, Meredith, what was really inspiring is our folks with their level of commitment and passion to do what's best for the greater good. That's what we channel our energy towards too,
Mm-hmm.
right? What is your North Star being here? And what are your quests to do? We harbor that, harness that, incubate that, and that's when we push people to take that idea to action. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any idea when you first started this role on the innovation team that this is what the work was going to be like?
Absolutely not. And again, that pure curiosity at first is like, wow, it's a bit of oxymoron, government innovation. So we actually tease about some of my friends in private sector, what on earth are you going to do? Right.
Right.
But I always tell them, I was like, you know what? I have no idea, but just the fact that I'm given an opportunity to write my own storybook for the first time in my career professional life, that's inspiring. So I can't tell you what's going to come out of it, but I know I can do something.
Yeah, that's excellent. When you've been in this role, are there some key projects or maybe some key experiences that were notable for you that led to some key learning moments that you can share?
I'll be honest with you, I carry forward some of what I've learned through the past lives, and I give credit to a couple of my previous bosses and mentors because
Oh
I
yeah,
think
give them
they
a shout
really,
out.
yeah, I mean, absolutely. They taught me so much where I carry with me, and I always told them, I am who I am because of you today. A couple things that's notable that I still carry today, and it's brought me a lot of comfort and success is one of the gentlemen says, hey, if you don't know and is curious about a company or industry, go work for them because if you don't, you'll never know what's underneath the iceberg.
Hmm.
And that's, I'll be honest with you, that's how I landed initially in the biotech and pharmaceutical organization.
Yeah.
Because while I was an equity analyst, that was my most underperformed portfolio was biotech and pharmaceutical. So taking his learning right into practice, I jumped in and started working for biotech companies and pharmaceutical, and was there for like, almost a decade.
Yeah,
Um,
get your hands dirty, get that experiential learning,
yes.
right? That's very important.
Yes. And then the second learning, I had a boss as well as a VP of sales in the biotech and pharmaceutical. He says, you know what? You learn most when you're uncomfortable. And that's
That's a good
when
one.
the ideas comes out and they're genuine and they're practical and you grab onto those.
I love that.
Yeah.
Stealing that one. That's great. So you have these great experiences, in these different sectors. You come to public service, and you jump right in on the innovation team, and you lead this team, so known as the I team, right, for Johnson County.
Correct.
So from the county perspective, why focus on innovation? What does this help Johnson County do?
Great question. I believe innovation is a success factor for being an HPO or the high performance organization that you talked about.
Mhm.
What we really truly want to do is build this environment where we encourage our folks to be creative, be adaptive and agile, but also have a concept of constantly pushing for continuous improvement at all levels. So similar to what I mentioned before, that what I call the three words, right? Ideas to action, right? If you got nothing else, that's what it should be in your mind at all times. Um, and I'll be honest with you, we focus our efforts on what we call the quadrant two from the Covey's time management matrix, which
Mhm.
what that matrix talks about is it's important but not urgent because a lot of time we fight fires, right? That's
Right.
always where we focus on, but we totally forget that longer term relationship building, that visionary piece that will kind of carry us through from a sustainability perspective. But again, you just have to kind of push and look at how we run business more effective and efficiently with that diverse perspective. So again, look for the ideas to action to kind of help you drive that.
Yeah. And what was some of the first things that you worked on, as a part of the lead of the I team?
Great question. So back in 2019, when I first joined, um, we brought, I want to say, almost 100 of our employees together in these roundtable sessions. And the goal was to try to find out, hey, what does innovation mean for you all? Because it is capturing their voices and their ideas is what we were out to get and build from that foundation. Because that's a bedrock, right? What our people believe in innovation should be what innovation is about for our organization. So I would say that would be something that I still look back on as kind of the origin of how the I team started with their vision, mission, and our North Stars.
And did you have a lot of agreement from folks in that in those roundtables about what the definition of innovation?
Oh
I
gosh,
imagine you got 100 different definitions, right?
I mean, I think it was definitely drinking from the fire hose, right? You have 100 people with all phases, all walks of life, all phases in their career path, different experiences. But that's what makes it exciting. Is just harvesting that and channel it to a unified message.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what iTeam is all about, right? We were born from the concept of HPO, but what we are out, our quest in terms of our North Star is what our folks are teaching us to be and
Yeah.
what they want and what they need.
Yeah.
So I think that's exciting.
And where does a high performing organization show up in other places in Johnson County's work?
You know, as part of our leadership philosophy, our pillars of performance, I mean, HPO is front and centered across all our learnings, teachings, whether it's lead classes or supervisor trainings or even just classes for continuous improvement. So I want to say HPO is truly front and center, but part of that pillars of performance and our philosophy.
Oh, that's great. So
Yeah,
it's kind of woven through all the things, the thread that kind of pulls through the work that you all do.
correct. And that's why in our job postings, right, we state that we are different forms of government because we do have that foundation to share. And we're
Yeah.
quite proud of it, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, and as a large organization like a county, that's often really hard to do. And so I'm imagining it's been around for a minute. Is
right.
that right?
Yeah, it's been around for quite a while, at least a
Excellent.
decade plus. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Well, from that kind of first initiation of I-team work and aligning around a definition for innovation, are there other projects or programs that the I-team has initiated that you're particularly proud of?
Absolutely. The Sparks pilot program is my personally pride and joy, I'll be honest, because it is truly homegrown. And we can definitely share with you what I mean by the definition of homegrown.
Yeah, let's launch into that. So the Sparks pilot program is kind of the highlight of our questions today. So why don't you give us a bit of a deep dive into, what that is? Tell us about what led to the creation, what the program is, how it developed, what does it really help the county address?
Absolutely. So, like I mentioned earlier, back in 2019, we brought about 100 employees together to help us learn what innovation means for them. Out of those sessions, about 40 employees actually raised their hand and say, hey, we are interested to help you run your project as part of this new innovation team. So since 2019 to I want to say 2023, we started using them informally by bringing them into our projects
Mm-hmm.
throughout these past few years. And what led to why we are now formalizing this program is truly their feedback, what I call the voice of customers from our informal Sparks program from 2019 to 2023. Again, that's the true motivating factor. They are the reason why we have the drive to formalize it. And I'll share with you some of these feedback because they are incredibly powerful. Okay, so there's 5 quotes that I share with our leadership team and anyone that wants to start their program. So one of them says, I am huge on building professional relationships with individuals in other departments internally and externally to collaborate on how we operate. Okay,
Powerful.
really powerful.
Yeah.
Second quote, group collaboration. There's so many greater ideas undiscovered among our employees. Sometimes they just need the space and the invitation to participate, and those ideas come out,
It's very observant.
right? Third quote, time spent with colleagues from different discipline, keyword, different discipline, and the opportunity to contribute to a new solution slash path forward. Do you hear the themes? I
Yeah.
hear it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I do too.
And the fourth is working outside my own comfort zone and learning something new.
We
You
just
know
talked
I
about
love that one.
that. Yeah.
I'm like, thank you. I didn't even pay them to say that. And lastly but not least, obtain greater awareness of the department's pain point and inefficiencies and recommending potential solutions. So
Those are some
these are just
heavy hitters. Yeah.
right? These are just 5 examples of what we call the voice of customer that fuels me to formalize this program because I know it works, they love it, and we need it as an organization.
Hmm. So
So
then you had this kind of informal space. How do you go from that place to formalizing it, and what's the difference now in this formalized Sparks program?
great question. So we did a lot of the work polling what I call the legacy sparks. And we partner with them as well as our steering committee, which consists of 6 executive leadership members.
Hmm.
So bringing folks together to say, hey, let's figure out a proposal or structure what this can look like if we want to formalize this program. So out of a lot of that massaging and negotiation,
Yeah.
I want to say we underestimate, but that took a good solid year, Meredith, to kind of
Yeah.
land that framework where everyone agrees to have as a pilot program, right? Less fearful. It's a pilot.
Right.
We've been
Yep.
doing it for the 4 years. That's why we launched this Q4 of 2024.
Okay.
So the new formal program, like you mentioned, we it's an application process, and we invite about 15 or 20 employees from the 30 departments, office, and agencies as a cohort for about 12 to 15 months. So we call this class of 2025. That's
Very
what we're
cool.
going on. So we have 20 employees from 16 departments, offices, and agencies. And year one was my class of 2025. And the members in the class of 2025 is going to have 2 key pieces that they're engaged in.
Okay.
One is participating in our monthly, what we call the innovation cafes with their dedicated mug.
Love it. Love it.
And doing this cafe is basically 60-minute information sharing and learning sessions. Because what we're hoping is that they get to learn something and take it home
Hmm.
and try it out. Okay. The second piece that the members and the employees will get out of joining Sparks is being on projects with us. So they can opt in to participate whichever projects that we have in our project funnel, and they can do different things such as market research with us, cross departmental collaborations, right, or even presentations, but give them that space to learn something new and to do something new.
Hmm.
And what's powerful, Meredith, is when we plug into the project like we've seen this past few years, they actually bring it home and test it out themselves.
Yeah. Well, modeling that behavior is really powerful, right? Because you can show them how to do something and not, yeah, not to use the name of the program, but that kind of sparks something in them, right? I hope that's why you called it
Oh,
that.
yeah, absolutely. I'm glad it worked. Now that you
Yes,
picked
it
it up
does.
right off fast, like it works.
Yeah.
Um,
Being able to be in that space and it sparks something for them, and they take it back and they get to then kind of teach their counterparts and their colleagues about what they learned, about what excites them about that, and about how to do the thing that they've been taught to do. And that applied learning then reinforces the learning for them as well.
Bingo. They become the ambassadors, right? So now I have 16 departments out of 30. I now have ambassadors and tentacles in each of those organizations to say, you have someone that can do it and know how to do it, right? So,
That's excellent. So tell me a little bit about what happens in the kind of 60-minute cafes. So they have their super snazzy mug and they're there and they're sharing information. What does the structure of that look like?
absolutely. So, the purpose again for that monthly cafe is 1 hour where they share and learn, right? And each of the month there's a theme. So we actually have a poster that they already know when they join the class of 2025 what each of the topics or themes for the month. So for example, March we just did our cafe around data informed decision.
Mm-hmm.
And then April is going to be continuous improvement. So
Cool.
again, we have these themes that we get together and we'll do some learning, and we bring guest speakers from our project previously that fits in those themes, because that's how we build our project funnel.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of the combination of learning and guest speaker, and also doing group activities. So for example, for data informed decision, we start playing with a whiteboard, a digital whiteboard called Mural.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they were
Yeah, we
super
use Miro.
excited. Yeah,
Love Miro.
super excited. Yeah, it's super interactive, very engaging, very collaborative, and we're seeing actually a handful of them went ahead automatically and do their own sessions with their groups. So it's just exciting seeing that they're applying what they learned right off bat in one cafe, 60
Mm-hmm.
minute, and they're already testing it out.
Yeah, and some of those teachings and the learnings that come from that seem very I guess like kind of low code, accessible. Like you don't have to have a lot of advanced knowledge to be able to utilize them, even though perhaps the concepts on the poster might seem very technical in nature. A
Correct.
lot of times those sorts of things break down to some very simple concepts that people can pick up in that amount of time, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, so yeah, absolutely. And to add on the bonus, these cafes are in hybrid format because we know that
Mm-hmm.
it's very disruptive, right? To take 16 folks out of their department's office agency and join us every month. So they can either join in person or they can join virtually. But it's always recorded so they can go back if they want to pick up some pieces and parts of it, to bring back home. So I think it's easier to
Yeah, well,
kind
and
of
having
set
that
that stage.
yeah, having that different learning format too is also great because some people really thrive in an in-person group. Others, might thrive in that more hybrid space, and they have the option to kind of oscillate if they need to, which is neat.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, what are you seeing from the participants so far? Are they kind of developing that sense of curiosity and that way of thinking? What are some of the things that have surprised you from your 2025 cohort?
So for my class of 2025, what I see in this short few months, is I'm beginning to see that they are active listening, but on top of active listening, they are actively practicing.
That's great.
And that is a confirmation for us to say, hey, they are retaining and then they're actually spreading it,
Hmm.
right? So that's, I think, at least I underestimated how fast that they can learn and do something about it.
Hmm. Well, especially if it's engaging to them, right? And I think
Exactly.
that kind of speaks to how you have set up some of these opportunities for learning is that there is a inherent and true desire to immediately be picking up on what they're learning and using the thing, right?
Absolutely.
Not everything is set up where people walk away and say, boy, I really want to go practice that, but
Yes.
there's something special here, which is kind of cool.
And the other thing we were laughing between the three of us when we know it's working is every time we have this cafe, the first month or two, everybody's kind of uncomfortable, which is okay. We understand. As soon as the hour's gone, everybody leaves. Well, if you watch this past 2, 3 months, everybody stays and asks more questions and customizing. So it's almost like the hour now drag into an hour and a half, an hour and 45 minutes with lots of follow ups and spin offs. So we know, hey, it's working.
Yeah, well, and embedding that in the culture of the organization, which is really cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then, in the next couple sessions here, what are some of the future topics that you're going to be covering with your cohort?
Okay, so if I look at our glossy poster, which I love to share with anyone that's interested, now that we have this packaged or formalized program, in May we're going to do AI in local government, and I just had lunch with our CIO, and I already kind of put the bugs like I need you to kind of help me, right?
Uh-huh.
Share your thoughts and ideas, and to kind of stimulate some thought process that maybe they can do some stuff in their own organization.
Hmm.
For June, we got collaboration and brainstorming.
Very
Um,
good.
July's innovation HPO. And I think August we're going to come back because due to popular demand, customer experience is catching on
Ooh.
very, very fast,
So
whether
you
it's internal or external.
Sure. So you say by popular demand, have you covered that already with this cohort?
We did in
Ooh,
February, and we realized
okay.
there's so much demand, it warrants a deeper dive
Love that.
into this. And I think we'll finish off with change management and continuous improvement.
Well,
The
and I
tw-
love how you and your team are adopting, speaking of change management and continuous improvement, right? Like you also have the opportunity and the flexibility and the schedule to hear from the participants about their needs, and you're able to kind of shift and pivot. And in this case, revisit for a deeper dive.
Absolutely. And that's why we're trying to invisibly teach them the fundamental of project management. But my favorite part of project management is being agile.
Hmm.
I heard this wonderful professor or teacher once said, project management is actually people management.
Hmm.
And in order to do that, you have to be agile and adaptive. And that's what's going to make it successful, especially in this our current landscape. So
Yeah.
absolutely. We're learning every step of the way.
And as you're going through your class cohort, how are you connecting with either a steering committee or the executives to bring them along and to help them understand all the cool things that are happening in this space?
Um, Absolutely, because that's part of their job or in the charter, so to speak. It's funny you ask that because we actually leveraged our steering committee to
Uh-huh.
sell this when we wanted to formalize this program with our executive leadership team. So they've been with us since the beginning. Um, from scoping all the way to formalizing this program. So we have
Hmm.
very close relationship with our steering committee because I'll be honest with you, part of the reason why the steering committee is here for us is elevate innovation at the executive leadership level.
Hmm.
So again, they're very entrenched, very well aware of where the program has been and where is it today. Now, in terms of their engagement from a technical standpoint, it's funny, we were just saying, hey, how would you like to be take on shadow opportunities for our sparks? Because I mean, Meredith, they never have the opportunity to get out of their um, organization, learn new things.
Yeah.
So I would like them to maybe even think about shadowing with some of our executive leadership team, whether it's from the steering committee or the larger group.
Yeah. That makes sense. Well, and having that kind of top down connection, and those champions at that level is often one key to success for um, both an initiation of an idea, or in this case a program, and for the longevity.
Absolutely.
Because if you can't kind of have people see the vision and the value, it's very hard to continue something.
True.
But it seems to me that in this context, there you all have immediate value, and you can demonstrate that, and a lot of their departments have probably benefited from it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, what are some of the reasons, if another local government is listening to this, what are some of the reasons another agency might want to consider, whether it looks exactly like this or not, but thinking about a program that invests in its employees around concepts of innovation? What have you seen from your perspective?
Great question. I think part of one of the reason I think it helps is it avoids this sense of if you always do what you've always done, you always get what you've always got from that
Mhm.
famous saying.
Yeah.
So I think innovation plays a huge role to avoid that as a default, to be honest. Um, the other reasons I think cross pollination is what helps broaden our perspectives, and it's truly these new perspectives and viewpoints that fuels the generation of that innovative ideas that we talked about. And
Mhm.
once we have those innovative ideas, again, I'm going to harp on that three words, then it's taking the ideas to action. So
Yeah. And then, if there are other agencies that are interested in starting up a program, what are some key words of advice you might give them? What's the recipe for success here, regardless of what it might look like at the end of the day or how it might be structured?
absolutely. So I think there's one thing that I would recommend is start small but run very, very fast and think about scale up appropriately down the street.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be honest with you, Meredith, what I fell in love with that public sector is it's always an open door, open book. So what I absolutely love in the past is I can pick up the phone, call different jurisdiction, and
Yes.
they just welcome me in and they teach me things with no question asked.
Mm-hmm.
So I would highly recommend pick up the phone, call us, right? Set up a team
Mm-hmm.
meeting with us, and we can share with you our journey. And I like you to think maybe you can use that to customize a package that may fit with your organization.
Yeah, and it sounds like you have a packet and a lot of materials to share too, which is really great.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I love. I talk about a lot in local government. Building relationships. You now are one of my what I call coalition of the willing. Right? You don't tell me how busy you are. You put down
Yeah.
your pencil, your phone, whatever, and you focus up and
Yeah.
say yes to things. Like that's who we are in local government, and I love that. In this context, that there's so many aspects of this Sparks pilot program that kind of feeds into the I don't know, like the philosophy and the vibe of that coalition of the willing in local government, which is very cool.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's the beauty of the public sector that I see, that I was, be honest, unconscious and competent, right? I didn't know this world existed. And I drank the Kool-Aid now, right? Because it's
Right.
like, wow, I now do things that I sleep well at night, knowing I'm doing it for the greater good, that the impact I can potentially make in my journey or my chapter is just epic, honestly.
Yeah, yeah. In this particular space, at the end of this cohort program, you said 12 to 15 months.
Huh?
For you, what goals do you have that you would like to see this cohort kind of get to and end up with at the end of the pilot period?
I want them to be besties. I'll be honest, everything I tell them is about relationship building, right? If
Yes.
you look at the quadrant two, I'm like, guys, do you see it? It's all about relationship because we are human beings. We
Mm-hmm.
collaborate, we crave that connection. So I want you all to know you will always watch over one another. So when you call each other up, you will always be there, just like you said, put your pencil down. This is our people. If they're suffering, we need to suffer with them, right? We win together or we lose together. So
Mm-hmm.
that's my number one is build that the petri dish, the
Yeah.
relationship, the camaraderie between every class. Now, I'll be honest with you, every class is going to become our legacy. So my
Yeah.
40 or 100 from the past 4 years, these class of 2025 will just add on to that. So
Right.
eventually, knock on wood, we'll get all 4,000.
Right. Well, and you have they talked about tentacles before, right? They go back into their departments and they do all that good work and they teach others and the um adoption of these ideas become a lot more frequent. The
Yes.
perhaps reticence or distance from them becomes a lot smaller, right? And so
Right.
it helps kind of feed that culture, that high performing organizational culture that you all are looking for, and it becomes reinforcing, which is really cool.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what we actually practice HPO, right? So
Yeah.
guess what? We don't talk about it because it's in your DNA, and
Yes.
that's what the eventual culture we want. And we are just part of that, again, the part of the factor that can get us there. Is what I see.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Well, after the program ends, you plan to have future rounds of this and hopefully move from pilot to permanent.
Right.
What's the kind of financial impact of doing something like this? What's the ask that you have to make of your organization to carry something like this forward?
I mean, there's no monetary things when we launched this pilot Sparks program, because again, this is a carryover effect from what
Hmm.
we've already been doing this past 4 years. What I would like to use is the feedback with the voice of customer through each of the class cohort as the main driver
Yeah,
for branding to trademark, whatever you call it.
sure.
The create, I call them, you are the glue, right? We need to create the stickiness because the more you spread, the more DNA is solidify the foundation of HPO.
Yeah,
So
Well, and I think that's important for our listeners as they're hearing about the Sparks program is this is not a high budget item, program, right? And many of these things that are relationship building and that are meant to be reinforcing do take a lot of sort of human capital of thinking it through and being intentional and having designs that a program design that thinks about the participants and its impact on an organization. And that does take time, and there's people's salaries and things associated with it, but it's not like buying a whole new technology product or bringing in a consultant or redoing or repaving a major roadway. Like, this is human capital, and if you have the right people around the table, it's not a big budget ask, and it's something many, many places could do with a little bit of effort.
Absolutely. That's why I encourage everyone start small, right? Band a few folks together that's like-minded, that has the sense of what I call the grit, right?
Yes.
Or stubbornness, and just give it a go, right? You know what? I was talking to someone, I said, our employee is our largest asset in our organization. We have to invest in them, right? Leverage their expertise and skill sets, and you will see some really amazing things that comes out when you get the right people around the table at the right time. You'll see those magic sparks, honestly, and just take, you pave the, what do I say, pave the runway and watch them take off,
Yeah.
honestly. So
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm super excited to see where this program goes. But as we wrap up today here, Grace, tell us what's next for you. What are some special or interesting things you or your agency are working on that our listeners should look out for?
gosh, Mary, there's so many stories that's happening across all our 30 departments, offices, agencies. I have a hard time coming with a few because
Yeah.
that's what we want. We want them to fire out all cylinders,
Yeah.
right? Because that's the momentum. That's what's going to drive us to make traction, right? If you look at the bell curve, I got the early adopters. I am now moving that 80%.
Hmm.
Um, but I would, take this opportunity to invite folks to connect with our folks and maybe
Yeah.
start learning from each other on the best practices and even pilot programs, whether we're doing it or they're doing it. And let's just share some things. I think it's going to be really exciting that I would like to see cast a wider net of network and
Excellent.
diversify those perspectives.
Yeah, for sure. I also am very curious about the feedback that you're going to get from your users, right? Because at the end of the day, the intent of this work, the intent of a high performing organization is that your community feels it, right? That there is a better ability to kind of live and thrive, to access city services without barriers, to level up for wherever your community is at. And I'm really curious to see what some of that feedback is going to be.
Absolutely. We'll start small, run fast internally, and this should trickle right to the externally
Yeah.
as a dividend. So, absolutely.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, Grace, I wanted to acknowledge for our listeners, before I ask the last question here, I'm going a little off script, but you have been a trooper today because you are giving this interview amidst a potential emergency. Can we talk just a little bit about that? Because I just want to acknowledge how calm and cool and collected you have been in this interview.
No worries. We are dealing with some spring weather,
Uh huh.
thunderstorms slash potential tornadoes. So it's part of, I think, being here in Midwest and
Mm-hmm.
Kansas is when you hit those seasons, those are always some potential risk that may
Yeah.
just pop up.
Right.
So thank you for putting up with me as I'm trying to navigate how to engage and be mindful of those potential risks that may surface.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that, just goes to show, kind of the kind of person that you are and the worker that you are. And, being in this space where we all are often in local government, where on any given day, we might have to pivot. So thank
Absolutely.
you for hanging with us and for doing that. And
Thank
I
you.
hope you get to avoid any emergency and stay safe while doing so.
Thank you so much, Meredith.
All right, Grace, last question here. If you could be the GovLove DJ, what song would you pick as the exit music for the episode?
No, this is a good one. This is a tough one. So I'm going to leave you with this and definitely Google it. Andrea Bocelli, and the specific song that came to mind, titled Because We Believe.
Because We Believe. Aw, that's lovely.
And he is coming to United States tour this year. So for those of you that want to see Italian tenor, beautiful tenor voice, and then he's going to be here in a few cities this year.
Well, and that goes back to your opera theme, right? So
I know.
very, very full circle, and lovely speaking with you today, Grace. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Take care of yourself.
Okay. This ends our GovLove episode for today. A big thanks to Grace Hanne for joining the podcast. Subscribe to GovLove on your favorite podcast app. New episodes drop every Friday. If you are already subscribed to GovLove, go tell a friend or colleague about this podcast or share on social media. Help us spread the word that GovLove is the go-to place for local government stories. GovLove is brought to you by ELGL, Engaging Local Government Leaders. The best way to support GovLove is to become an ELGL member. You can reach us online at elgl.org/govlove or at GovLove Podcast on LinkedIn, Instagram, and X. Thanks for listening. This has been GovLove, a podcast about local government.
Che per vincere tu dovrai vincere.